Good evening. This is the Lion of Legend, and welcome to the Girl in Red. So, some sort of name I'm not able to see, was it? The allegation you put forth is quite surprising to say the least. Can you tell me a little bit about the incidents that you described in your police report? Sure can. Give me a sec to organize my thoughts. I think it happened around 3 weeks ago. I'm not sure if it has been happening for longer than this, but the first time I noticed it was a few weeks ago. A girl takes my route home from work at the same time I do every day. She was always behind me. I didn't know who she was at the time, but I had a feeling that she knew who I am. Occasionally, I'd leave my job earlier than usual, around 20 minutes or so. Yet she was still behind me. At the time, she had not talked to me yet. I haven't seen her anywhere other than behind me, never bumped into her at work or saw her sitting at a cafe nearby. She always just seemed to appear when I started walking home. I never saw her on the way to work, just the way back. My earphones broke a few weeks back, so I couldn't listen to music on the way home from work like I used to. I've become extremely conscious of an extra footstep after each of mine. It didn't bother me at first, since I live in a somewhat populated city and I'm used to other people walking the same path as I did. Though those were different. It wasn't just coincidental. It's a perfect step after mine, as if whatever was creating them wanted to keep itself hidden. After a while of hearing this, I spun around to see who was behind me. The only person there was a girl in a red dress. The girl did not stop walking. She continued forward, staring directly ahead. I remember finding it hard to tell if she was staring at me or something behind me. She had blonde hair with red ribbons and wore a summer dress with bandages across her right arm. She was as pale as a modern house interior and had freckles over her nose. Her eyes were a vibrant blue. The girl in the red dress almost seemed like a doll, with how pristine her features are. While I was stuck in a daze, she caught up to me. She stopped walking and gave me a little wink. This first encounter of many perplexed me. Even to this day, I don't understand why she tried so hard to hide her footsteps. Over the next few days, I noticed the pattern repeating. She would match her footsteps with mine and continue walking ahead of me if I stopped. I was interested in where she was going, but I figured that would be a breach of her privacy. To test, I left work unannounced. Yes, I had to get in trouble the next day, 45 minutes earlier than usual. Even so, she was there behind me. I also tried taking a different route home. She was there, behind me. I wonder if she knew I was aware of her. On the 7th day of this occurrence, I stopped and motioned to let her pass me this time. She smiled at me. Though instead of walking past, she began to speak. "Would you like to have dinner with me?" She spoke slowly and methodically, as if this particular sentence was repeated for several days before she managed the courage to ask. In the moment, I remember feeling scared. Up to this point, I wasn't even sure if this girl was really real, let alone someone who would invite me to dinner. I stuttered a little before hesitantly agreeing. She gave me a wink and giggled, before walking ahead of me. I stood there a few minutes before comprehending what had just happened, until it dawned on me that she didn't give me a time or a meeting place. That night, I was making up some cup ramen like usual before I heard a knock on my door. Upon opening it, the girl in the red dress stood there. She smiled upon seeing me. I suppose asking how she knew where I lived would be idiotic, as her whole thing was following me home. Her pupils were strangely huge. I let her inside and noticed that she was carrying a few bags of groceries. She urged me to go into the dining room so she could start cooking dinner. I agreed, though to be honest, I'm not sure why. I just remember feeling safe around her, despite her having stalked me home for the past week. She never scared me. I took out a book and began to read while waiting for the girl to finish. After around 25 minutes, she brought out a plate of sliders. They looked really yummy. As she handed the platter to me, I noticed her pupils were tiny, almost little dots in her eyes. She didn't want to eat any herself though, but urged me to eat as many as I wanted. I remember thinking to myself at the time that she seemed cute. I looked at her for a little before biting into my first slider. I remember wondering why she seemed so interested in me, or why she chose to do this instead of just inviting me out to coffee. I shrugged those thoughts aside and bit into it. It was really good. One of the best burgers I've ever eaten. After eating 3 or 4 sliders, she looked delighted and went back into the kitchen to cook something else. I noticed her hands behind her back were covered in bandages. I think she noticed that I saw and urged me to not worry about it. Another 10 minutes passed before she brought out a stew. It was a beef stew with stir-fried vegetables. It looked yummy and smelled delicious. Again, she didn't want to eat any herself, but I had 2 helpings. From memory, it tasted very good. I remember it having a taste of metal in some areas though. Again, she looked very happy and proceeded to go back into the kitchen. As she walked back, her hands were still fully bandaged, though this time both her arms were covered in bandages as well. I believe this is when I started to get very concerned about them. It was easy to say that she's not very skilled at a knife and nicked herself a few times, though at this point I'm not too sure that's correct. Another 10 minutes passed. 15, 20, 25, 30. I began to grow worried. I decided it best to glance into the kitchen to see if she was okay. "Hey, is everything?" I gasped. The girl in the red dress was standing at the counter attempting to pick up a knife. With no fingers. 3 out of the 6 fingers missing were sitting on the cutting board along with several other bits of flesh. Looking at her could reveal where they came from. There were squares cut out of her arm, chunks of her hand missing to the point that I could see bone. Her lovely red dress was rolled up, and her thighs were similar. Cut after cut after cut. Missing pieces of meat that should have been there. It's nowhere to be seen on the cutting board either. It made me wonder what was in those sliders and beef stew. The floor, my kitchen, was drenched in blood. There were measuring jugs with a red hue staining them on the counter, as if something dark and red was just poured out of them. I thought back to the metallic taste of the stew. I remember the way she looked at me. Thank you. I believe that is enough for today. This was very informative. You're free to go now. Thank you. Yet another case of a girl in a red dress. The end. Is that Furude Rika from Higurashi? Huh. Well, that was The Girl in Red. Chapter 1. I guess I'll get into Chapter 2. All art was drawn by Squiddy Wifey, except all of these backgrounds which were stolen directly from Higurashi Unaku Kuroni. Which explains. Yeah. Okay, bye-bye. See ya, Rika. Well, that was The Girl in Red. Chapter 1. There is a Chapter 2. Perhaps I should go hop in there now. Alright, welcome to The Girl in Red 2, or The Girl in Red, Intrusive Chapter version 1.1. What's this extra here? Hi, welcome to the Girl in Red Extras. There isn't too much here at the moment, but I hope you enjoy. I also couldn't figure out how to lock the extras until the game was completed, so read it after you finish the game, or I will eat you. Okay, I'm gonna go do that, Girl in Red. Let me just get out of here and go back to the main menu. Let's start. When I get nervous, I bite my fingers. Specifically the middle of the index finger on my left hand. The sharp pain helps ground me back to reality whenever my mind is elsewhere. It helps me concentrate. It helps me calm down. The past few weeks, I've noticed someone walking behind me on my way home from work. She didn't seem malicious. She just walks behind me each day. I was a little hesitant to glance at her while walking. I wasn't sure if she was actually real. Come to think about it, I haven't seen her anywhere but behind me. Never ran into her at the library or any cafes, just walking behind me on my way home from work. I'm hesitant to call her my stalker, though my friends say she definitely was. But it could still be a coincidence that she has the same schedule as me. Today, though she was right behind me, usually she was a little while back, but today I could hear her footsteps perfectly. Her footsteps were perfectly on a line with mine. It was almost like she wanted me to know of her presence. I bit my fingers. Does she want something from me? No. It has to be just a coincidence. I'm overthinking it. While lost in thought, I noticed something brushing against my right leg. Startled, I spun around to face the source. The girl in the red dress was suddenly right next to me. Sorry if I startled you, hon. Oh, that's okay. We walked side by side together for a while in complete silence. Why is she so close to me now? I could feel sweat dripping from my forehead, and my hands were clenched. Do I talk to her? What does she want? I took a deep breath in and lightly exhaled. Sorry. Did you need something from me? Sorry. I've seen you at work a little bit, and you interested me. What are your hobbies, Julia? That took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting her to talk so casually. Or know my name. How did you know my name? It's written on your name tag, hon. She giggled a little at that. Right. Hobbies. Shit, I bit my fingers. What should I say? If I told her my interests, it would scare her off. Sweat began to drip down my forehead. I like tabletop games. Oh, like Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons? Yeah, exactly those two. Wow, how unexpected. I like those as well. Want to talk to me about them? Sure. Though this is my house, it was nice talking with you. Will you be here tomorrow? The girl in red looked a bit disappointed that we had already reached my house. Sure thing. I'll be there. With that, we parted ways. I entered my house with butterflies in my stomach. Who was that girl? I should have asked her for her name, or her Discord. Maybe I will tomorrow. Skipping through the house, I reached my couch in the dining room. The couch felt nice after a whole day of work. I really hope I didn't bore her today with our conversation. She seemed happy to hear that I played tabletop games, though. I hope she was genuine about that. Maybe we could play a game together sometime. Something in the window caught my eye. My heart sunk, dread replacing it. Something was there. I just saw a figure shift past my window. I didn't catch a good look at it, but I definitely saw something. Standing up, I bit my fingers. My parents weren't home yet either. I stood still for a moment, unable to take my eyes off the window. Was someone watching me? I continued glaring at the window for 10 or so minutes, until I was satisfied that whatever was there was gone. I quickly ran to my bed and shut my eyes. I couldn't sleep very well that night. Phew. Work was really tough today. The whole time I was both excited and nervous to talk to the girl in the pretty red dress. The thought of someone watching me last night through my window stuck in my mind. I hope she's here today. I really need to talk to someone. Oh, I could see her approaching me from the other side of the street. Good afternoon, cutie. How was your shift? A sigh escaped my lips. Just remembering the shift made me shiver. Aw, not a good day? I shook my head. May I ask what happened? Should I tell her? I suppose I had no reason not to. I couldn't get any sleep last night because something happened before bed. It just made what was already a hard work day way more difficult. Oh my, that does sound hard on you. I nodded slowly and bit my fingers. What happened last night, if you don't mind me asking? I closed my eyes. The vision of something shifting by my window flashed in my mind. I shivered. It's okay if you don't feel comfortable telling me. I hope everything is okay, though. Yeah, sorry. Thank you. Well, what was difficult about work today? My bosses had me clean almost the entire store by myself. Just remembering it made my muscles groan. My body is not used to that much physical strain. The first couple hours were wasted too, as they didn't give me the right supplies for cleaning anyhow, so... Plus, usually juniors are the ones to do that type of work. I sighed and stopped walking. My legs were too tired. Aw, poor Julia. I nodded. Sorry. How was your day? It was lovely, thank you. I spent my day waiting for you to finish work. I had an 8-hour shift. I glanced at her. Did I say something wrong, Julia? I guess not. She could have just been excited to talk to me. She most likely meant it in a nice way. We finally finished our walk and arrived at my house. Goodbye, Julia. Have a good night. Oh, you too. Bye. Bye. My parents were home tonight, so I wasn't as worried about whatever was previously by my window. However, I was still on edge and struggled to sleep. Thankfully, nothing occurred tonight. Good afternoon, lovely. How was your workday today? It was good, thank you. How was yours? Her expression softened. It was fun, thank you. I blushed. I couldn't believe that she waited for me here. I wondered if she had a job, or just what she did in her spare time. Yesterday, she told me that she spent all 8 hours of my shift waiting for me. Was that normal for her? I guess asking her about it couldn't hurt. Sorry, I'm a bit curious about something. Do you have a job? I used to a few months ago. Currently, I don't have a job, though. That's no good. It's okay. I found a much better way to use my time. Anyway, you're about to talk to me about your hobbies. Oh, right. Yeah, sure. If you're happy to listen. The girl in red nodded. I play a Breton cleric in a D&D campaign with some friends. My character is called Evelyn, and she's an anxious wreck. She hates literally everyone in the party since she's like the only normal one. The girl in red nodded, seemed to be following along fine so far. Oh, except for this Vardvark called Beef Sniff. Her brow furrowed. Oops, did she not know what that was? Vardvarks are like an aardvark, but it only has hind legs. I don't remember why it was called Beef Sniff. It was cute though. I needed to change off this topic. I was definitely losing her. Anyway, the campaign takes place in Tamriel and has been super fun. Although we haven't had a session in a little while. But still, it was really fun. The girl in red nodded. Did I talk too much? That sounds nice, Julia. I shyly nodded and bit my fingers. Well, what about you? Do you have any hobbies? Oh yes, I've been learning how to cook recently. Wow, what do you cook? I have just been cooking some burgers and stew. Would you like to try sometime? I stopped walking and stared at her. Is she asking me out? Surely not, right? Yeah, sure, sounds good. When? I was thinking tomorrow night. Would that be okay? My heart started to flutter. She really was asking me out for dinner. Oh, I'm still waiting on someone to get back to me on an ingredient I need. Would you be okay if we went out for dinner tonight instead? She looked a little frustrated as she said that, her brow furrowing. My mind was racing. Does this count as a date? Is this a date? Oh, sure, I'd love to. Yay, here's my Discord. I'll see you later tonight in that case. Bye, Julia. The abrupt end of the conversation took me by surprise. Oh, wait, we're at my house. Feeling silly, I headed inside, still giddy about the girl in red wanting to go out for dinner with me. I sat on the couch waiting for the girl in the red dress to text me. Eventually, it came through. Her online profile fits her well. It looks very pretty and is a mixture of a black background and deep red heart shapes. She texted me the time and the place. She types the same way she talks. Far too elegant for someone like me. Oh gosh, what do I wear? I haven't went out for dinner in ages. I ended up picking out what I usually would wear and went to bed for the night. The waitress put our dinners in front of us. It looked really yummy. A perfectly cooked pork katsu over a lump of rice and nori flakes. Her serving was much smaller than mine. Sorry for the bland meal today. I should get the ingredients by tomorrow. Would you like to try my cooking then? There was a glint of disappointment in her expression after saying that. I looked back at the meal. It looked good to me. Sure, I'd love to try your cooking, though to be honest, I'm just happy that you're having dinner with me. She still looked a bit sad, but decided to smile and pick up her fork anyway. We started eating in silence. Gosh, I was actually immensely nervous, my heartbeat ringing in my ears. I felt a little sick even. I was only able to take a few bites at a time. I hope she didn't think I was weird. I had never had a dinner with a friend like this before. What should we talk about? What's the proper etiquette for a restaurant dinner dates? What should we talk about? Look, I'm cutting off from the script here for a moment. Do we know this girl's name yet? Because we could talk about that. If this was even a date, I bit my fingers to relieve some of the stress. Do you have any aspirations in life, Julia? Her voice startled me, and I made a little noise. I blushed a little and looked down at my meal. Aspirations, huh? I've never really thought too hard about it, to be honest. The concept of my life changing significantly like that is a little too much for me right now. As a kid, I always wanted to be an author. I haven't written anything in a while, though. Oh, that sounds lovely. What would you write about? She sounded excited, like she was genuinely interested in me. I hadn't experienced that before. You're going to find it silly, but I used to have an ongoing novel series in 9th grade that was about a zombie apocalypse. It was a romance between a zombie and a human. She looked surprised for a moment before lightly laughing. You were right, that does sound silly. I blushed a little and faced her. What about you? Any aspirations? The girl in red was deep in thoughts for a moment before responding. I suppose I used to. Back before I found you, my parents wanted me to be a psychologist. I used to study at a university for it. She gripped the table as she spoke. I didn't mind studying it, though I never really understood why I was doing it. It just felt like I was doing it to make my parents happy, rather than myself. Gosh, this is deeper than I expected. I nodded. That all changed when I found you, Julia. I stopped going to work. I stopped keeping up with my university responsibilities. I stopped hanging out with my friends. I stopped talking to my parents. Her eyes were locked into mine, piercing my skull. You're all I care about. You're my aspiration. You're the one thing I've done that I feel is right. You're my everything. I couldn't live without you. I stared at her, stunned. This was not normal. This was not okay. I knew she liked me, but that's a little extreme, is it not? She had to be joking, right? I just met her yesterday. I bit my fingers. I think I've heard of people saying stuff like that in my fanfics. Surely it should be okay, right? She could have been just expressing her feelings. She's definitely joking. She cleared her throat and started speaking again. Are you still happy to try my dinner tomorrow night? That was pretty weird. It could have just been a one-off thing, though. Dinner should be okay. She is pretty, after all. Of course, I'd love to. I'm happy to hear that. I'll see you tomorrow then, Julia. Tonight was fun. Thank you. She called the waitress over and picked up her purse. She barely ate anything. Her dinner looked almost untouched, save for a few bites. I'm a little worried about that. I hope that she was eating enough. Oh, right, the check. She said she didn't have a job. I could cover her, I suppose. I didn't mind covering a dinner for a pretty girl. While lost in thought, the girl in the red dress stood up and started leaving the restaurant. I was confused for a moment, until I realized that she already paid in full while I was spacing out. I bit my fingers. Gosh, I felt stupid. With a bright red face, we said our goodbyes and left the restaurant. Work was really hard today as well. I couldn't stop thinking about the girl in red. Oh right, she texted me something this morning. On my way home from work today, I needed to stop at the store to buy some items that she wanted for dinner tonight. Bread was first on my list, so I visited the bread aisle. There were hundreds of bread types there: sourdough, spelt, sliced, artisan, wholemeal, and many, many more. Which one would she like? Does she prefer anything in particular? Does she have any dietary requirements like seeds or gluten? Is she wanting a loaf of bread or something more akin to bread rolls? Should I text and ask her? But she might not respond in time, and I'd look weird standing by the bread aisle on my phone for an extended period of time. I took a deep breath and bit my fingers. I'm sure if I get something simple, she won't mind, and if she does have dietary requirements, I could just apologize and go get another loaf. I guess in that mindset, I would have learned something new about her too. I grabbed a loaf of sliced whole grain and moved on to the next item, which was a 2-liter bottle of chilled lactose-free milk. Thank God she was more specific with this one. After sighing in relief, I began to head towards the fridge. I hated how many people were in supermarkets at this time nowadays. Shifting my way through the crowd to reach the milk was a challenge. I usually do my grocery shopping right before it would close, or just at my work. There's usually next to no other customers there at that time, and usually I would sometimes bump into one of my friends who worked there. Except this time I had to get these items before dinner for her. I'm not one to complain, especially since it's some pretty girl that's asking me for dinner. I eventually reached the milk section and went to open the fridge door. My fingernails grazed inwards against the glass. A shock ran through me, and I bit my fingers. A tingling sensation coursed through my arms with my hands twitching. I instantly backed away from the fridge door and clasped my right hand with my left. The feeling forced my muscles to tense up and made me wait until it finished. I'd rather cut off my fingers than feel this for a moment longer. With difficulty, I managed to raise my left hand to my mouth. I bit into my fingers again and took a deep breath. The feeling eased and I tried again, this time with much more caution. Thankfully, the fridge door opened easily this time, and I was able to get the milk. Okay, what's next? I glanced down to the small list she gave me. Her handwriting is so pretty. The last item on the list was bandages. Why would she need bandages for dinner? Is it really for dinner? Or something else? If that's the case, why did she ask me to get it for her? We haven't known each other for too long, and I have avoided bringing up the bandages on her right arm. Was this her way of giving a hint to me? Should I address her about it when I hand these bandages over? I bit my fingers, a little blood being drawn from my bite. The pain brought me back to my senses, and I figured that if she wanted to talk about it with me, she'd bring it up herself. I grabbed a regular-sized packet of bandages and made my way back home. Upon getting home, a familiar face greeted me with a wide smile. Her red dress looked so vibrant and contrasted well to my bland house walls. "Good evening. Thank you for these, cutie. I can start on dinner now." The girl in the red dress spoke excitedly upon seeing the bag of groceries in my hands. I shyly nodded and handed her the grocery bag. She gave me a wink and headed into the kitchen. I watched her back as she moved with grace into my kitchen. Every move she made was so beautiful. I blinked a few times as I heard the rustling of the plastic grocery bag. "I'll help out too," I proclaimed while biting my finger. I rushed into my kitchen with a blush on my face. It felt almost alien to me to see another girl in my house. The girl in red unpacked the groceries on the counter and got a few extra ingredients from the fridge. I stood there awkwardly fidgeting with my hands until all the ingredients were in a pile on the counter, including the bandages. Should I ask her about that? The girl in red picked up a kitchen knife from a drawer and began cutting up some carrots. The movement of her wrist was spellbinding. It was fluid and seamlessly sliced through the carrot. She's very good with a knife. I watched her in awe for a moment before I realized I should cut one up as well. We prepared the vegetables in silence for a few minutes before she spoke up. "So, how was your day today, love?" It took me by surprise. She didn't speak much, but her voice was so pretty it sends a jolt through me every time I hear it. I bit my fingers before replying. It was good. We had some problems with the customer today." The girl in red stopped cutting up vegetables and looked at me. Her gaze was so piercing that it made me blush again. "That's no good. What happened today, if you don't mind me asking?" I retold the events of today's work shift to her. I hope she didn't get bored of listening to me. The events of today were nothing special, yet she listened intently to every word I said and offered support. We finished preparing the vegetables, and the girl in red began to stir-fry them before bringing out the meat. Gosh, every move she made was so elegant. She was stunning. Can you please cut this chicken into smaller strips, cutie? While I was watching her, she spoke, startling me. I hastily nodded and bit my fingers before reaching for the raw chicken breast. All the while, she continued to focus on getting the stir-fry perfect. She was so pretty. I wasn't paying attention to what my hands were doing at all, so when I felt a sharp pain in my thumb, I yelped and glanced down at the cutting board. I had accidentally nicked my thumb on the knife, and it was bleeding a little bit. I stared at it for a moment, a little shocked that I did that. The girl in red was staring at me with a weird look in her eyes. Though that look was gone so quickly, I began to believe I imagined it. She gasped and reached across the counter for the bandages I bought earlier. She silently put a bandage on my thumb before exhaling, clearly relieved. It happened so fast, all I could do was sit there. Thanks. I'm sorry. What are you apologizing for, hon? You did nothing wrong, okay? She's so nice to me. With a smooth movement, her hand grazed across towards my head. It landed in my hair, and she began to ruffle my hair softly. Her hand felt nice. I'd never been patted before, but it was just as perfect as all my fanfiction stated it to be. I didn't know what I did to warrant such a perfect girl to have invited me to dinner. I was grateful regardless, and bit my fingers. I suppose it's fortunate that she chose a night where my parents were out. Still, I wondered why she offered to make me dinner at my house instead of her own. Actually, wait. We made a stew for dinner today. What was the bread for? I mean, I guess we could be having it to pair with the stew. I'll ask her over dinner, I suppose. Okay, that's all the prep work done. Now just to let it cook. She startled me out of my thoughts as she said that, and I jumped. I hastily nodded and looked at the boiling pot. It smelled really yummy. I decided I'd go into the dining room and read while waiting for dinner to finish. The girl in red stayed in the kitchen to keep an eye on it. I hope she didn't mind doing everything for dinner tonight. I've never really been a good cook, only able to cook my 2-minute ramen. Then again, even that took me at least 8 minutes. Actually, wait, come to think of it, what was the milk for as well? The bandages were used, but only because I'm an idiot and wasn't paying attention to the knife in my hands. So what was everything else for? I was about to head into the kitchen to ask her about the bread and the milk before she came out holding a bowl of steaming stew. It smelled and looked really good. Only one bowl was brought out. Did she not get any for me? Did she expect me to go get my own? I guess I am an adult. I bit my fingers, reopening the wounds from my teeth marks earlier. I felt a little embarrassed that I assumed she would serve me and began to go get my own serving. Oh, where are you going, hon? Well, there's only one bowl, so I was gonna get my own serving. The girl in red giggled cutely before placing the bowl down at where I had been sitting. She sat down in the chair opposite and rested her head on her hands. She motioned for me to sit down. I'm not hungry tonight. I'm happy just to watch you. She said that so methodically while batting her eyelashes towards me. I blushed and sat down while picking up a spoon and hesitantly took a first sip. It was really good, actually. It had a slight tang to it, but the vegetables and meat were cooked perfectly. Still, I should have probably asked her about the bread and milk. Maybe the bandages. Hey, why did you need bread and milk if we were having stew tonight? Well, the original plan was to have sliders as an entree, though I should have specified what type of bread I meant. Sorry about that, hun. Gosh, I'm such an idiot. Why didn't I realize she meant bread rolls? As for the milk, well, I knew that you were out of milk in your fridge, so I decided I should remind you. She said that with a smile, and I thought she looked cute for a moment before I thought about what she said. I bit my fingers, the skin lightly tearing at the marks. This was the first time she'd been to my house. How did you know I was out of milk? The light vanished from the girl in Red's eyes. The words flowed from my mouth before I got the chance to think about them. I immediately regretted asking and bit my fingers. She glared at me without saying anything for far too long. The more she stared at me, the more I remembered how strange her behavior had been. She greeted me when I entered the house earlier. How did she get inside? She gave me this shopping list yesterday on my way home from work, after inviting me to dinner. She only told me to get these items by tomorrow. I bit my fingers. How did she get inside my house? Since she knew I was out of milk, had she gone into my house before this? I bit my fingers again, this time harder. It hurt. I looked up and glanced at her. Just who did I let into my house? Though something gives me the feeling that I didn't let her into my house. She would have found a way in regardless. She was still glaring at me. Her red dress and pretty face no longer looked safe. Her once effervescent blue eyes were lifeless and piercing. I looked down at the stew. Was this even safe to eat? She could have put a needle in it or something. I slowly looked back up at her, and something caught my eye. There were more bandages across her arms than before. When did she get the time to do this? I bit my fingers harder. I felt a little blood enter my mouth. I glanced up at the clock. I need to get away from this table. I mean, it's fine. I'm sure I'm just overthinking it. I knew she was my stalker, and she probably just knew where I kept a spare house key. I didn't even have a spare house key. I glanced back at her, and she was holding up her right hand with a key in it. Did she cut my key and make her own copy? As I was staring at it, I noticed something else out of place there too. I bit my fingers, the skin surrounding the open wound getting scraped off. Her pinky finger was missing. It was wrapped half-heartedly in a small white bandage that was seeped red from the stump. My vision started to distort, and my breathing grew ragged. Just who was this girl? Who did I let inside my house? How did she make a copy of my key? I stood up and bolted to the bathroom before shutting and locking the door behind me. I bit my fingers while breathing heavily. What the fuck is happening? Should I call the police? Shit, I didn't bring my phone with me. It's still out on the table. Why was her finger suddenly gone? That doesn't just happen. I bit my fingers. I felt teeth start to puncture deeper within the skin. The pain is immense, but my mind was focused purely on my situation. I began to calm down for a moment. My breathing steadied, and I bit my fingers again. I heard a knock on the bathroom door before a somber and slow voice crept through. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to scare you. I just thought getting a key of my own would save us time. I should have talked to you about it first. I'm sorry. Out of everything I expected her to say, I didn't expect to hear what I wanted. What about the bandages? Why is your finger missing? I cut my finger while making dinner. It was an accident. I didn't want to make tonight any worse than it had to be. So you decided to ignore it instead of going to the hospital? I would have helped you. Plus, what about all the extra bandages? Why are they there? Are you okay? I bit my fingers harder. Blood continued flowing into my mouth. I'm okay. Thank you for asking. Her answer did not tell me anything. Just words to respond to it for the sake of responding. Guilt welled up inside of me. Was I overreacting? Is losing a finger something that just happens? If she didn't want to reveal her secrets to me, that's fine. It was rather rude of me to ask that, I suppose. I sighed, bit my fingers, and went to open the door. Just as my fingertips grazed the door handle, she spoke. What about you? Is your finger doing okay? I felt confused by that comment. I didn't know what she was talking about. I looked down at the finger I had been biting. It was bleeding. I suppose I kept biting it more than usual this afternoon. I figured I'd wash it off in the sink first. The water stung on the open bite marks. The extra bandages on my arms are for you, Julia. I froze. Every hair on my body stood on the end at that comment. What do you mean by that? They're for you. My body is like this. For you. I started shaking. Did she mean the self-harm? What did she mean by that? How would the self-harm be for me? I bit my fingers. I felt my canines hit something tough. Julia, did you hear me? I thought you'd like it. Wasn't the stew good? The stew? What did this have to do with dinner? The doorknob of the bathroom started rattling. The voice continued wafting through the door, though it was getting a little more frantic. Now fully disconnected from the girl in the red dress I met on the way home from work one day. There's no way that the insane person outside the bathroom door is the same person. Julia? Julia? Are you okay in there? Did I say too much? Air was getting caught in my throat, and my heartbeat echoed throughout my head. My vision was warping and distorting with darkness beginning to grow at the edges. The doorknob kept rattling, and her voice continued flowing. Julia, I love you. How can she love me? We only met recently. Who is this? Who exactly loves me? This woman should barely know me. I bit down hard on my finger. My canines pierced something. A warm liquid flowed into my mouth, accompanied by a snap. I instinctively spit and brought my hand out of my mouth. My index finger was missing. The one I'd been biting was suddenly gone. An indiscernible amount of pain in my left hand coursed through my arm. My shaky vision directed towards the floor in a daze. Upon seeing it, my knees buckled, and a vile feeling started brewing in my stomach. I clutched my hands to my mouth before the bile came spewing from my throat. The continuous knocking and rattling of the door handle felt distant to me. Tears began to flow from my eyes. The knocking grew louder and more rapid. One final bang of the door handle rang out in my ears. A slow, eerie whine started as the door swung open. I spun around to face it. The girl in red was standing on the other side of the now open door. She had one hand up to her cheek and the other holding the pack of bandages. Her eyes glaring directly at the severed finger lying below me, she slowly brought her vision upwards to look at me. She giggled upon seeing the pathetic sight of me. "You are too cute. We're twinning now." Her shaky and erratic voice left me confused for a moment, as my brain wasn't comprehending her words. She held up her right hand with her missing pinky finger and wiggled it a little. It no longer had the little bandage on it, the open wound in full display. Beads of sweat dripped down my forehead, and my stomach began to churn. The girl in red stared at me for a while. Her breathing was sporadic, small giggles escaping her twitching mouth. Her eyes were darting around, trying to take in all of my face. She looked at me as if I was some sort of toy. Despite the open wound on her hand, she fidgeted with it, her whole body convulsing. Without warning, she approached me. Her hands were shaking, and it caused the pack of bandages she was holding to fall, leaving a soft thud behind. She tucked her skirt beneath her hands and crouched down next to me. Her face was so close. She smiled at me, though her eyes looked like they belonged to a dead fish. Is she going to help me? I attempted to speak, but no words could be formed. Without responding, her eyes glanced towards my severed finger that's lying in a pool of blood and vomit. She picked it up, wiped it a little on her skirt, and slowly raised it up to her mouth. Her sparkling white teeth gripped the severed end of the finger before slowly and eloquently tearing the flesh off the finger upwards. I looked on in horror as the skin from my finger was torn off. When the line of skin she was tearing split off from the finger, she tucked it into her mouth and started chewing. I just sat there as she swallowed the chunk of my finger. The intense need to bite my finger took a hold of me, and I brought my hand to my mouth without thinking. Right. A cute giggle rang out, which resounded around me. The girl in red was still staring at me with that look in her eyes, and my finger in her hands. She twisted the finger around and started gnawing on it. I swear it twitched. My phone is still in the living room. I could reach it. I need to call the police. This person was insane. My legs begrudgingly listened and allowed me to stand and hastily make it to the door. Somehow, I made it before my legs buckled and I grasped the table. It's gone. I was certain that I put it next to my dinner, yet it's gone. A small giggle originated from behind me. My neck snapped around to see the source of the sound. Looking for something? I attempted to speak, but no sounds came out. With a quick motion, she snapped her hand into her dress pocket and brought out my phone, dangling it in front of me, taunting me. The slight sway of the phone, the sharp, intense pain in my hand, her incessant giggling ringing in my ears. It was too much. My vision began to fade at the edges. The view in front of me began to distort. Her giggling grew into laughter. I collapsed to the floor and passed out. What happened? Where am I? My eyes slowly began to open in a daze. Everything hurts. Good morning, lovely. My eyes widened. Right. I remember. My hand. I glanced down at my hand, or at least attempted to. Confusion struck me for a moment, as I couldn't figure out why I couldn't bring my hand to my face. It took me a minute until I realized the blunt pain on my arm was ropes. My hands were tied behind the chair I was sitting on. Still stuck in a daze, I glanced around me. I was tied to a chair in the center of my kitchen, with the girl in red in front of me. In her hand, she held a kitchen cleaver. The counter had my finger on it, or at least, what was left of my finger. It was a few chunks of meat barely holding on to a few bones. I wished I never woke up. I was wide awake at this point, and my eyes were darting uncontrollably around the room. I couldn't look at her. I couldn't. It was then that I noticed some tinted glass shards spread across the floor. Following the trail led to the remains of my phone. It was snapped in half, and the sides of the case were bent. "Why are you doing this to me?" I managed to sputter those words out as my mind focused. The pain in my hand was still sharp, but it grounded me to reality. It was somewhat like an intense form of biting my finger, I suppose. Despite my calm mind, the kitchen was distorted and out of focus. My hands were rattling on the chair with sweat dripping down my forehead. I didn't understand why my body was not acting in line with my mind. "Isn't it obvious? It's because I love you, darling. I just want us to be together. I just want us to be connected." With a solemn grace, she glided over to me. Her hand gently caressed my cheek before reaching down to the rope holding my hands to the chair. After untying my left hand, she scooted the chair to the countertop. I finally got a chance to take a look at my wound on my hand. I have no idea how long I was unconscious for, but it was no longer bleeding. I stared at it for a second longer before her slender arm reached mine. It gently gripped my wrist and moved it up to the counter, where the remains of my finger lie, and the chopping board. She began to hum. It was an oddly cute melody that filled me with a strange calmness. I didn't know what she was doing, and I don't believe my brain could comprehend at that moment what she was going to do. I felt aloof, I think. I wasn't actually sure what I was feeling, or meant to be feeling, at that point. I felt like I didn't know anything. It was as if I was locked in a dreamlike trance. Her red dress was hypnotizing, the frills slightly brushing against my arm as she moved. My legs were still bound to the chair, and my phone was still broken. There was no way out. There were no more chances. This woman was going to end my life. I was disassociating hard and desperately needing to bite my finger. The girl in red looked a little worried at me, which confused me. I couldn't tell what she was thinking at all. She glanced around the counter for a bit, and her eyes lit up as she reached for something. She looked happy as she passed her hand towards my mouth and put something in it. It was my finger. I bit my fingers. There wasn't much meat left on the finger. It tasted gross. To my horror, my body began to ease, my mind calmed down, and I was able to organize my thoughts properly. The girl in red looked satisfied and smiled sweetly towards me. With elegance, she raised her cleaver overhead. The cleaver sparkled. The moonlight coming in from the window perfectly danced across the blade. The shadow of her form spread across the backside of my kitchen wall. It looked pretty. My mind was distracted for a moment before her expression reminded me that the cleaver was pointed towards myself. Every instinct in my body telling me to shove her aside and bolt out the door. I needed to do something. She was going to kill me. My finger toppled out of my mouth and landed with a small thunk on the floor. I attempted to free my hand from her grasp on the counter, with no luck. Her grip was unnaturally tough. My wrist ached in pain due to my struggling. Trying to elbow her, I awkwardly shifted my arm to hit her body. With no luck, I couldn't even nudge her a little. There was nothing I could do. In my desperation, I tore my legs back and forth, attempted to free them from the chair that they lay confined. With no luck, the rope shredded the sides of my ankles. I winced in response. Nothing I was doing was accomplishing anything. The rapid beating of my heartbeat resonated through my spine, every thump forcing my stomach to contort. Please, please. My voice was void of hope. It sounded defeated. I didn't know what it wanted to say. She looked at me quizzically, like she didn't understand what she was doing. Before she noticed that my finger had fallen, she reached down to grab it. Once again putting the devoured finger in my mouth, she smiled. A familiar sensation spread across my mouth. What little blood left in the finger was seeping onto my tongue. I bit my finger. My hand was still being firmly held in place on top the cutting board. My legs were still tied to the chair, and I couldn't move. I felt cornered like a pathetic animal. My attention drifted towards her face. She noticed my gaze and gave me a little wink. Before I could even think about a potential reaction, she brought the cleaver down. It forcibly landed with a slam on the counter, accompanied by extreme pain in my left hand. An immense ear-splitting scream rang out as I buckled and clasped my arm to my chest. Horrid, obsessive laughter rang around my ears. I tried to grasp my left hand, but my hand was missing. I heard the slight metallic tap as she slowly put the cleaver back onto the counter. The girl in red's laughter stuck in my mind as she gripped my cheek, forcing my gaze upwards to meet hers. All grace was lost as she raised my severed hand to her mouth. She looked like a child who got their hands on cake. The sharp white canines revealed themselves as she opened her mouth. My vision began to blur, but I could make out the girl in red taking chunks out of the side of my hand. The pain isn't going away. It enveloped me. Good morning. Julia, was it? You're lucky that we got to you in time. You were bleeding profusely. I blinked. My head. I was in a hospital bed. Looking down at my left arm revealed that it was fully bandaged. Not just the hand I was missing, but the whole arm. Alarmed, I glanced at my right arm. It was similar. Fully bandaged. I blinked a little more. Some of my fingers on my right hand are partly missing. My breathing began to quicken. Why is there so many more cuts than there should be? She only cut off my hand, right? It's insane enough to me that she would be so obsessed as to actually do that. Actually, now that I think about it, how was I even alive to begin with? Before I could ask the doctor that, he began to speak. You're fortunate that your girlfriend found you before you bled out. I understand that you must be confused. You were bleeding out on the floor of your kitchen. Your girlfriend came over to visit, found you, and called an ambulance. We are still unsure what you got assaulted by, but the police are investigating. I'll go tell a police officer that you've awoken, and they'll come talk to you soon. With that, the doctor left the room. He gave a small nod to someone standing just outside before leaving my sight. The unidentified person shifted into the room. Familiar blonde hair and a red dress presented themselves to me. All of her fingers were intact. There were no visible injuries on her body. Good morning. My head began to spin, my vision distorting around the sides as the hospital room became more and more out of focus. My stare was locked on her pinky finger, fully intact. That vile feeling from earlier began to emerge. The end. Extras unlocked. Ah, yes, now I can go to extra, and ideally the girl in red won't, crucify me or something. Let's see here. Hi, welcome to the girl in red extras. There isn't too much here. At the okay, so let's skip and go ahead and get right to business. So, credits. All art was drawn by Squiddy, including the backgrounds this time. They all look very good. I'm very proud of her. Go find her on Tumblr if you want to see her other art. Her handle is SqueeBanana. All writing was done by Charlie, me. Big thank you to everyone who has supported me and helped me write this. I'm very lucky to have friends like all of you. The music is still placeholders with most found in Higurashi. Hopefully we'll have some original score soon. They should all be royalty free, but please DM me if I'm wrong about any of them. For now, here's the credit list for the music I used. Title theme, Succubus Intro, by Zaggy2. Store, Mrs. 17 or Gear, from Koji Kusanagi. I really like this one. It's very smooth. The House, Every Day, by Setu Niman. If I'm saying that right. Dining Mystery, Discretion, by Setu Niman. Bathroom Corridor to Insanity by Koji Kusanagi. Bathroom 2, Blades in the Bread by Adnova. Kitchen Insanity by Koji Kusanagi. Hospital, Emotional Piano and Violin by Vera Miller. Thank you for reading The Girl in Red, The Intrusive Chapter. I hope to see you again sometime soon. That was very heartful. Let's see what this other one is. Blender ending. This one was my original ending for this story. It was a little over the top. It kicks off once Julia wakes up tied to the chair in the kitchen, after all the bathroom events. Just a reminder that this is not canon. These events are not, and never happened to Julia, okay? See you soon, cuties. Good morning, lovely. My eyes widened. Right, I remember. My hand. I glanced down at my hand, or at least attempted to. Confusion struck me for a moment, as I couldn't figure out why I couldn't bring my hand to my face. It took me a minute until I realized the blunt pain in my arm was ropes. My hands were tied behind the chair I was sitting on. Still stuck in a daze, I glanced around me. I was tied to a chair, in the center of my kitchen, with the girl in red in front of me. You are far too cute, Julia. She reached for the rope tying my hands to the chair and untied my left hand. I need more of you. She left my hand untied and glided over to another side of my kitchen that was out of my sight. I heard clanking noises behind me, as if she was searching through my kitchen gear. Eventually, the noise stopped, and I heard her steps as she slowly approached behind me. She gently held my shoulder with her slender arm and rotated around the chair back into my vision. In her hand was a blender. Without saying a word, she plugged the blender into an outlet and moved my chair towards the counter. Her hand once again reached for my arm, though this time her grasp was not gentle at all. She firmly grasped my arm and forced it to the counter. A slight click was heard as she turned on the blender. A loud whirring filled the room. She turned the blender onto its side and held it in place. She slowly and methodically moved my hand further into the blender. I began to struggle a lot as the tips of my fingers were incrementally getting closer to the blades. The girl in red continued staring at me during this. The tension was cut as my fingers finally reached the tip of the blades. My middle finger's nail caught the edge as the blender's blades ripped the nail off its bed. I yelped and attempted to pull my hand out of the blender before severe permanent damage is done. Her grip was like iron. I couldn't move my hand an inch. I curled up all my fingers in a panic in an attempt to buy myself some time to react. My eyes darted around the room before locking back onto the girl in red's lifeless blue eyes. Her grin seemed to taunt me, her resolute to follow through with this insanity as solid. Tears began flowing down my face. An extremely sharp jolt of pain from my knuckles snapped me out of my fixation as the blades reached my curled hand. I screamed. The pain was immeasurable. I couldn't think of anything else as my fingers were being sliced apart. She continued pushing my hand in the blender, now more quickly. My vision left me altogether, though I didn't notice as the pain was the only thing taking up my thoughts. After writhing in pain for what feels like forever, I felt a small pat on my face. It forced me to open my eyes and surprised me. I didn't notice, but apparently the blender had stopped. The pain in my wrist dulled, slightly. It was still immense, and I could barely comprehend what was going on in front of me. I should have been in my kitchen, however, I couldn't see it. I could see her, however. She held the blender in her right hand, it containing a mysterious red slurry. The slurry was poured into a glass that was sitting on the countertop. She joyfully stuck a straw into the glass and took a sip. Her face looked quizzical for a moment before reaching into my freezer and grabbing a couple handfuls of ice and a scoop of ice cream. Those were added to the mix with the addition of the remains of my finger that I bit off earlier. She once again turned the blender on and churned the mixture into some sort of smoothie. The whir of the blender causing me to panic a little. After sticking the straw back in and tried it again, she smiled brightly and got all excited. I was still left in extreme amounts of pain bound to the chair. My hand was fully gone, and the open wound dripped blood. Unable to speak or do anything but breathe, my vision was fading again. Yeah, can you see why this is a scrapped ending? It's just a tiny little bit over the top. Yeah, I'm not very proud of that one. I much prefer the canon ending we got. Also, all the police scenes from the first one are retconned. Okay, bye-bye. If you haven't read the first one and don't know what I'm talking about, go join our Discord. Link in our itch.io bio. That ending is a bit over the top. When the blender came out, I was... I definitely was thinking, what is happening? There's a now the girl in red is drinking the human smoothie with ice cream and bro, what is happening? That's interesting though. So the police scenes were retconned, huh? Well, clearly this girl in red is still quite the mystery despite going through both chapters, so I'm sure that her story is not done yet, especially with the canon ending. We still don't know this girl's name yet, do we? I feel like the main character of the second story was very oblivious and definitely needed to have a stronger sense of awareness. But, alas, it is what it is. I did find these stories interesting. It's been a while since I've played a sort of yandere type of visual novel. I think this is the first time I've played a Yuri-focused yandere visual novel. But this girl definitely has a issue with cannibalism for whoever it is that she's targeting or whoever she falls in love with. Waiting outside of your job for 8 hours? I mean, there were so many red flags. And we just chose to ignore them because that's what we do, apparently. Copying your key? Man. Intrusive Chapter? Intrusive is a very well-picked description. I did enjoy this, though. I am curious where this is going to lead. I'm curious how I'm curious how this story is going to develop. What happened in the canon ending there with the character that we played as, who is bandaged up, and seemingly the girl in the red dress, like she's not as, I guess, hurt because the pinky is back, and then for whatever reason, she was just able to get away with this. How much of this is like in our mind, and how much of this is the girl in the red dress just really understanding and knowing how to play the game? So I am in that Discord that was mentioned earlier, so I suppose I'll be looking out for updates. And when updates do come, I'll be sure to hop on them. That all being said, if you did enjoy this video, go ahead and leave it a like, leave a comment, share the video, perhaps even subscribe to the channel. And I will see you all in the next video. So have a good night.